So the FBI has now released images of a person of interest in the fatal shooting of conservative commentator Charlie Kirk. And this raises some really interesting questions about whether AI, artificial intelligence, could be used to identify this individual. Now, it's a very popular question right now. People are asking me, could AI be used to find this killer? Could AI be used to identify who this person is? Well, the answer, there's multiple levels to the answer, but they're all no. There's no way that we know how to do it today with current AI. The leading edge of AI, frontier of AI research, could identify this person. We just don't have that technology yet. In this video, I'm going to talk about why. I'm going to talk about the technical aspects of this, and also talk about some of the legal issues surrounding this as well. So let's take a look at the image. This is the image released by the FBI. This is not a high-quality image. You can see the person is wearing a hat. They're wearing sunglasses. It looks like maybe there's some sort of fabric covering their face as well. Now, if you look at this, clearly this is not a very clear image. It's going to be difficult to identify somebody based on this. Now, in my previous video on this topic, I talked about what the FBI had said about this, which was basically they were looking for any information on this particular person. Now, when we look at the image itself, there's a couple things that stand out. First of all, it's not a clear image. And secondly, the fact that this person is wearing sunglasses and a hat is a huge red flag. The reason that's a huge red flag is because it means that the person doesn't want to be identified. This is not a normal picture. This is a surveillance camera. So this person is expecting to some degree to remain anonymous. If you look at the timestamp on this image, it's from 8:24 p.m. on the day of the shooting. So this is fairly close to the time of the shooting. But again, notice that the image is not clear. So if the police are going to try to use AI to identify this person, the first thing that they're going to have to do is enhance the image. They're going to have to somehow make the image clearer. Now, if you've seen any of my videos on image enhancement, you know that I've talked about how sometimes we can enhance images using AI. But again, the problem here is that the image is not very clear. It's going to be very difficult to enhance the image to the point where we can identify this person. You can see that the edges are blurry. The resolution isn't very high. So even if you apply some sort of super resolution technique to the image, it's going to be difficult to get a clear image of the face of this person. Again, the fact that they're wearing sunglasses is another issue. Sunglasses are very distinctive. They reflect light in a certain way, and they obscure your eyes. And so that's going to throw off any sort of facial recognition algorithm. Now, assuming that the police are able to get a slightly better image, the next step is to search for this image. They're going to take the image, and they're going to search for it across various databases. They might search for it across social media databases, driver's license databases, mugshot databases, things like that. But again, the problem here is that the image is not very clear. If the police have a really good image, a really clear image, then they might be able to use an algorithm to search for that image. But I doubt that the FBI is using that type of technology. Even if they did, again, the image is not clear enough to make that worthwhile. So assume that the FBI was able to enhance the image. Assume they were able to search the image across various databases. What they're going to come up with is a list of possible matches. They're going to get back a list of people who look similar to this person. And the problem is that all of these people are going to look similar. That's why the algorithm gave them back those names. But again, we don't know if any of these people are actually the person in the image. All we know is that these people look similar. So we have a bunch of people who look similar, but we don't know which one is the right person. Now, typically what the police would do in this situation is they would take the enhanced image and they would show it to a bunch of people and ask them, "Hey, does this look like John Smith? Does this look like Jane Doe?" And they would go through a whole list of names and they would try to get a positive identification. But again, the problem here is that the image is not very clear, so it's going to be very difficult to get a positive identification. The other problem is that we don't know if the police are allowed to do this in the first place. One of the big problems with facial recognition is that it requires a lot of personal data. In order to use facial recognition, You need to have a bunch of images of people, and you need to have their names associated with those images. And so one of the big questions is, where did those images come from? Did those images come from social media? Did those images come from driver's license databases? Did those images come from publicly available records? Well, the problem is that the police aren't allowed to just scrape the internet and grab people's images and put them into a database. That's not allowed. So we don't know if the police have a database that they can pull from. But let's say they do have a database. Let's say they have a database of 1 million people. Then they would take the image and they would compare it against that database. They would use an algorithm to compare the image against each of the people in the database, and they would see if there's any matches. Again, the problem here is that the image is not very clear, so it's going to be difficult to get a positive match. There's a lot of other problems with using AI to identify this person. One of the biggest problems is that AI is not perfect. Sometimes AI makes mistakes, and if the police make a mistake here, if they identify the wrong person, then they could end up arresting an innocent person. And so that's a huge problem. Now, hopefully the police have more information than just this image. Hopefully they have some sort of lead on who this person is. Maybe they have some sort of surveillance footage that shows this person entering a vehicle, or maybe they know what vehicle this person was driving. Hopefully they have some sort of information that will lead them to this person. And again, I don't mean to sound pessimistic. I'm sure the FBI is working hard to identify this person, and I'm sure they have some leads that we don't know about. But it's just very unlikely that they're going to use AI to identify this person because of the technical limitations and also the legal limitations. I hope you enjoyed this video. Thanks for watching.